Jonathan Hughes, the man I was supposed to marry, had what he once called a temporary girlfriend. Something he described as casual, half joking, half serious. It was the kind of ambiguous relationship where two people acted like lovers without ever admitting they were, and when it ended, they parted ways with all the drama of a real breakup. On the very day of our engagement party at Maplewood Estate in St. Louis, that so-called friend, Vanessa Collins, walked in, carrying a bouquet of yellow chrysanthemums. Tied to the stems was a card with one bold word written across it, condolences. She announced with a calm smile that it was a ritual to mark the end of whatever undefined relationship she had with my fiancé. Before I could even process the insult, Jonathan quickly pulled a thick red envelope from his pocket and pressed it into her hands. "Thanks for coming, Vanessa," he said smoothly, almost too smoothly. "This makes us even. From now on, there's no such thing as a breakup buddy friendship. We're done with that." She accepted the envelope, her lips curling into a charming smile, and then she walked past him, reaching for my hand, as if she had the right. Her touch was deliberately intimate, and her words cut sharper than any knife. "Madison, you've always struck me as both fake and cheap. But standing here like this, don't you think you actually look the part?" My blood boiled. Without hesitation, I yanked my hand free and slapped her hard across the face. The sound echoed through the hall. Then I turned to Jonathan, my voice like ice. "This is your fiancé standing in front of you. If you can't respect that, then go pick another one." For a moment, the room froze. Vanessa, in her simple white dress, covered her face and started to cry, her voice trembling with false innocence. Why did she have to hit me? The words fake and cheap still rang in my ears, making my whole body tremble with fury. Jonathan stepped forward, brows furrowed, his voice low but scolding. "Madison, are you out of your mind? On a day like this, how could you? Vanessa came here to congratulate us. Is this how you treat a guest?" His eyes were bright with anger, not for me but for her. Vanessa lowered her gaze, tears spilling, and whispered in a fragile tone, "I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't have come. I didn't mean to upset anyone. I'll leave so I won't cause trouble." By then our friends had gathered, drawn by the commotion. She explained softly. "The chrysanthemums, they were part of a promise between me and Jonathan. We said whoever ended up engaged first had to bring a gift to mark the end of our wild, reckless days." Her voice cracked with shame as she bit her lip, then she covered her face again and fled the room. Watching her run out, I should have been furious, but instead a strange sense of relief washed over me. I flexed my arm, still tingling from the slap, and turned toward Jonathan's friends just as a mocking laugh split the air. "Damn, Jonathan, your fiancé sure is feisty. Looks like you'll have your hands full." The man clapped him on the back with exaggerated amusement, his eyes glinting with disdain. "Funny, though. Back when you were at your lowest, she was the one who stayed up night after night helping you crawl out of the dark. And now this is how you repay her. Man, you're the textbook definition of using someone to cross the bridge and then kicking it down." Jonathan's face darkened, but before he could defend himself, another voice joined in, sharp and cruel. "Go ahead, Jonathan, take care of your little angel ex-girlfriend. We'll take Vanessa out for some street food, make sure she's not too heartbroken. Don't worry, we won't ruin your engagement party any further. Wouldn't want to risk another slap, right? Then you'd really have to choose between your bros and your bride." Laughter broke out among them as they turned their backs on him, one by one. One even raised his middle finger before walking off, leaving Jonathan standing there silent and humiliated. I watched them go, my heart heavy with disappointment. He had surrounded himself with people who thrived on chaos and disrespect, and I finally understood why his life always seemed tangled in needless drama. I was about to step closer to whisper something that might calm him when Jonathan's eyes flared red, and he jerked my hand away with a force that sent a shock through me. His voice cracked like thunder, raw and vicious. "Get away from me, Madison. Don't touch me." The guests around us gasped. My heart stopped, my body freezing as if struck by lightning. His handsome face twisted into something unrecognizable, harsh and terrifying. and for the first time I was afraid of the man I had loved for years. Tears welled up, but I swallowed them back, refusing to let the room see me break. Jonathan tugged at his tie, his chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. Then, as if suddenly ashamed of his outburst, his voice softened. "I'm sorry, Madison. Let's just calm down for a moment." I steadied myself, forcing strength into a voice that was cracking inside. "Fine. Then let's end this charade. There's no point in a wedding if this is what we've become. Let's walk separate paths and stay calm that way." The words tasted like ashes on my tongue, but I said them anyway, needing to salvage a shred of dignity. After all, it was only the man who had carried my entire youth that I was letting go of. My knees wobbled, my vision blurred, but I kept my back straight and turned to leave. Before I could take another step, Jonathan's arms wrapped around me from behind, desperate and trembling. "Madison, I didn't mean it," he whispered, his voice raw with panic. "I can't lose you." His grip was unsteady, almost pleading, and for a moment I felt the ache of the boy I once believed in. His gaze drifted past me to the cake table, where the bouquet of chrysanthemums still sat like a curse. The word condolences glaring in black ink against the backdrop of red banners and golden candles. The clash of death and celebration was grotesque, a vision that chilled every guest who dared glance at it. Jonathan stepped forward, suddenly seized the bouquet, and hurled it through the open doors. The stems snapped mid-air, petals scattering like ashes. "It's nothing," he insisted, his voice low but urgent. "Just a stupid joke. Let's not let it ruin our engagement." His height, his strength, the way his hands still shook around me, all betrayed the truth. Jonathan Hughes was terrified of losing me. He leaned close, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry, Madison. I was wrong. Let's finish the ceremony." And so, against every instinct, I forced myself to smile, to carry on believing that the worst had passed. But I was wrong. Vanessa Collins had left the estate that night with a wounded expression, yet she did not retreat into silence. Instead, she threw herself into planning a bachelor party for Jonathan, a lavish and mocking gesture that carried the sting of revenge. On the invitation in bold letters she had written, "Your goddess might despise people like me, but don't let her force you into denying yourself the fun you deserve." Jonathan and I had already planned to slip away after the engagement to spend a quiet weekend in a historic town nearby. But when the moment came, he shifted uneasily, avoiding my gaze. "You're exhausted, Madison. Why don't you rest for a few days? I can book you a spa, give you a chance to relax." His voice was gentle, too gentle, as if rehearsed. My eyes narrowed. Why today, Jonathan? Why suddenly? His hesitation betrayed him. At last he sighed and handed me his phone. The message thread was unmistakable. Vanessa had arranged everything down to the last detail. "She's been nothing but kind, Madison. Even after what happened earlier, she still wants to celebrate me. She barely touched her lunch today, spending the whole afternoon preparing for tonight. I can't refuse her, not after everything." My chest tightened as I read the words, bitterness curling inside me. He spoke as if I had been the villain, as if Vanessa's tears had absolved her of every insult. Still, I told myself not to push too hard, not to ignite another scene. She worked under him after all. Sooner or later, we would have to coexist. Maybe this was a chance to let things settle. "Fine," I said with a shaky smile. "Wait 10 minutes while I change. I'll buy something small on the way to thank her for her effort." But before I could move, Jonathan's hand closed over mine. His face twisted with conflict. "Madison, it's a bachelor party. The theme is single life. You wouldn't fit in." He hesitated, then added with quiet finality, "And Vanessa made it clear. She knows you don't like her, so she doesn't want you forcing yourself to attend." The words sliced through me like glass. My heart went cold. I looked him dead in the eye, voice flat as steel. "Is that so? Then perhaps I'll pay a visit to my neighbor instead. He just came back into town, you know, the boy who grew up beside me. I'm sure he would be glad to see me." I thought my jab would rattle him, that jealousy would finally burn away his calm mask. But Jonathan only paused, then laughed softly, the sound hollow. Do whatever you like, as long as you remember the way back home. I stood frozen, staring at the man I thought I knew, watching his figure fade into the night. My chest heaved with fury and helplessness, the weight of betrayal pressing down until I could barely breathe. The silence inside me turned heavy until all I could do was let the tears fall. I kept asking myself how the man who once stood in the pouring rain all night just to see me, the man who murmured my name even in feverish dreams, the man who had once loved me with no way out, could now treat me like this. Was this what men always became desperate for a home when they did not yet have it, but careless once they thought they had secured it? Hugging my knees, I sobbed quietly until my phone buzzed with a private message. The avatar was a cartoon cat, but my gut told me who it was. Vanessa Collins. My suspicion was confirmed when the next message came through a video. My thumb shook as I tapped it open. On the screen, a line of people stood side by side, each with an ice cube between their lips. They were passing it from mouth to mouth, a childish game of proximity, almost like kissing. The camera tilted, and there he was, Jonathan. He laughed nervously, eyes glittering with anticipation, as if he were waiting for his turn. My stomach lurched. Watching strangers press mouth to mouth was disgusting enough, but seeing him there willingly, part of it snapped something deep inside me. Rage burned through reason. Without thinking, I traced the location tag Vanessa had attached and stormed straight to the bar. The noise hit me before I reached the door. Vanessa's voice, high and playful, cut through the crowd. Jonathan, you better hit the target. If you miss, I'll never forgive you. Her laughter rang out sharp as glass. The memory of how it all began flooded me. I had met Jonathan when I was 18, a bright-eyed girl falling for the golden boy of our neighborhood. He was dazzling, the kind of boy who seemed born in sunlight, and I loved him quietly for 2 years until the impossible happened. He confessed to me. That day was like winning the lottery, happiness so unreal I could barely believe it. But fate was never kind. During my internship, a major firm in another city chose me for a year-long project. It was an opportunity I could not refuse. I thought Jonathan would celebrate with me, but instead his face darkened and he accused me of building a future that had no place for him. My explanations fell on deaf ears. He froze me out, and with my departure looming, I finally suggested we break up. Still, through every sleepless night, he was the only one in my thoughts. I threw myself into my work, finished the project months ahead of schedule, and rushed back to St. Louis without a single day's rest. And by some miracle, we found each other again, falling back into love, as if no time had passed. That was why the thought of losing him again now felt unbearable, catastrophic. I steadied myself outside the bar, switched on my phone's camera, and pushed open the door. The dim lights flickered, bodies swayed. The smell of alcohol and smoke clung to the air. Suddenly, something sharp struck my face. A plastic arrow shot carelessly hit me near the eye. I cried out, clutching my face, my phone slipping from my hand. No one noticed. Vanessa clapped her hands, squealing. Perfect shot. You did it. 3 shots for you, Jason. Her words dripped with delight. Then, giggling, she turned toward Jonathan and raised her voice. See, I told you we're meant to be. The perfect team. Her words were cut short by mine. My voice was ice. Jonathan, your bachelor party is truly entertaining. He spun around, startled, and I saw it all. His arms were still around her, their bodies pressed close, her pale skin against his solid frame, his grip too firm, too familiar. The scene was intimate, indecent enough to make my heart twist in agony. I locked eyes with him, desperate to see which face was real, the boy who once loved me, or the man now holding her. Madison, Vanessa cooed, slipping gracefully from his arms to loop hers through mine, pretending sweetness. You're early. If only you had come sooner, this game would have been much more fun. Honestly, being stuck with these guys is boring without you. Her voice was sugary, her smile sharp. I forced myself not to flinch, not to pull away, even as her touch crawled over my skin. I could taste bile in my throat, and the room spun with betrayal. Vanessa puckered her lips in a mock pout, playing the role of a sweet little girl, But before I could even answer, Jonathan cut in his face, suddenly hard. "Why are you here, Madison?" The room loud just moments before fell into a heavy silence. The men who had been laughing and drinking slouched back on the sofas, their eyes narrowing as they looked me over from head to toe, lazy and mocking. I shook Vanessa's hand from my arm and raised my phone, my voice sharp. "Didn't one of your close brothers call me the same brother who just had his lips pressed to yours?" I emphasized each word as if they were nails hammered into the wall. Jonathan's face changed instantly color draining, while behind him, one of his friends chuckled cruelly. "Vanessa better step aside. Jonathan's little wife here isn't the type you want to mess with. Careful or you'll catch another slap." Vanessa giggled, casting Jonathan a quick glance before backing away with exaggerated innocence. "I didn't mean anything. I'll just..." "Sit down." She shuffled back, eyes wide, pretending to be meek. But Jonathan's anger turned on me, his voice sharp and unrelenting. "What is wrong with you, Madison? Do you have nothing better to do than humiliate me? Can't I have a little space for myself? Are you never going to accept Vanessa?" He rubbed at his temples, frustration rolling off him. His eyes never softened, not even at the sight of mine. Already red and swollen with unshed tears. Then came the words that sliced through me like glass. "Your heart is sick, so now your eyes are twisted too. You see filth everywhere." The silence that followed was suffocating. I opened my mouth once, twice, but nothing came out. Finally, I whispered, "Fine. Then enjoy your fun." I turned away before the last of my dignity could be stripped from me. This man who once clung to me as if I were his lifeline, now looked almost relieved to let me go. "Head home, Madison," he said flatly. "I'll be back later." I stumbled into the hallway, sucking in deep breaths to steady myself. My hands trembled as I called my parents. My mother's voice filled the line, full of worry. "Sweetheart, are you all right? You're not hurt, are you? Have you truly thought this through? The engagement was only today." My throat closed up, terrified she would hear the cracks in my voice, so I typed out my reply instead. Each word deliberate, careful. Then I wrote to my company, accepting without hesitation the 3-year reassignment I had once debated. When the confirmation came through, relief washed over me like cold rain. It was final now. I was about to leave when I heard Jonathan's friends laughing at the end of the hall. Their words carried clearly. "I told you should have gone after her when they broke up. Instead, you played that whole breakup buddy nonsense. Look at the mess now. Jonathan still thinks of her, doesn't he? He's just planning to get this bachelor fling out of his system and then marry her anyway." Vanessa's voice rose light and scornful. "What if Madison West found out that Jonathan was the one who called her cheap and worthless? I still have the recording on my phone. Do you think she could survive that humiliation? Even if he only said it in anger with her pride, she'd never forgive him." Their laughter rang out again, cold and triumphant. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from crying out, nails digging into my skin. That night, with every ounce of strength I had left, I called a moving company and told them to take everything. 5 men arrived, professional and quiet. I stood in the apartment that was supposed to be our home, every corner decorated with love and effort, and I could hardly breathe. The man I had loved through all of my youth, the one I thought I would hold hands with until the end, was now a stranger. How was I supposed to forget him? One of the movers, a young man with a mask covering his face, picked up a wedding photo from the wall. The image of me in my gown and Jonathan in his suit glinted under the light. "Is this your boyfriend?" he asked casually. I thought he meant to pack it away, so I waved it off. But then he pulled down the mask, gave me a long look and smirked. "Honestly, he looks pretty average. Doesn't seem good enough for you." For a moment, I froze, startled by the bluntness. I almost believed he had said it just to comfort me. The word thank you was on my lips, but I never had the chance to speak it. The mover's smirk turned cruel. "Not only does he not deserve you, Madison, standing next to him, makes you look like one of those women he orders to entertain his friends." His voice was ice. Cheap entertainment. The terrifying part was the way his co-workers only chuckled, not a single one stepping in to stop him. I stared at his unfamiliar face, my soul sinking like an anchor into dark waters. My body reacted before my mind did. I slipped out of sight, heart pounding, and darted into the nearest bathroom. My shaking hands locked the door. I dialed the police, my voice breaking, and after the call ended, I hesitated only a moment before pressing Jonathan's number. The man who was supposed to protect me, who only lived 10 minutes away. My words trembled out, broken with fear. "Jonathan, I'm in danger, please." But another voice answered, sweet, apologetic, soft. "Vanessa Collins, oh Madison, sorry. Jonathan just fell back asleep. He's been so tired. Don't worry, I'll let him know you called." I froze, staring at the screen. It was past 2 in the morning. My fiancé was asleep in another woman's apartment, and she was the one answering his phone. Then the muffled sound shifted. I heard rustling, low breaths. Jonathan's voice. "Vanessa, why are you touching me there? Are you really checking?" His tone cracked into a strangled moan. Her giggle followed, sugary and sharp. "Jonathan, your fiancé is calling. Should I tell her you're busy?" Shame and fury crashed over me. Before he could even grab the phone, I ended the call. My reflection in the mirror showed a woman broken, humiliated, retreating from a battlefield she had already lost. Outside, the movers had sensed something was wrong. Fists pounded against the door, their laughter turning ugly. "You okay in there? If you don't answer, we'll break it down." I curled tighter in the corner, twisting off the shower head, bracing myself for whatever came. My only relief was the confirmation from dispatch. The police were on their way. Just then, a new notification flashed on my phone. A PDF file over 200 pages long sent by Vanessa. My hands shook as I scrolled. Screenshots of conversations between her and Jonathan filled the document. Page after page of Jonathan pouring his heart out, torn between regret and resentment. "I miss Madison. She's brilliant, maybe too brilliant. Sometimes I wonder if I made a mistake. She's the kind of woman who will always succeed, but maybe there's no place for me in her world." Vanessa's replies were sharp, poisonous, dressed as comfort. "She never cared about your feelings. She chose her career over you. Look at her clothes, always showing off, desperate for male attention. Do you think she stayed faithful all that time away? Men don't wait for women like her. Jonathan resisted at first, sometimes even defending me. She loved me more than anyone. She gave me her best years." But slowly, steadily, the words changed. He began to agree with Vanessa, to echo her contempt. "Maybe you're right. Women understand women better. Maybe she wasn't the woman I thought she was." The deeper I read, the worse it became. Vanessa told him stories of her ex, painting herself as the innocent one, abandoned and unsatisfied. She teased him with blushing emojis, luring him with promises of intimacy. He played along. He let himself be pulled closer, their exchanges dissolving into crude, reckless flirtations. Every page was a dagger. Every memory of me fighting for him. Every night I stayed awake, worrying about our future, all while he was busy confiding in her. Their words grew bolder, filthier. A private world where I did not exist. Then I reached the final line, Vanessa's crowning blow. "So tell me, Jonathan, who will you choose in the end? Me or her?" I pressed the phone to my chest, swallowing the scream that clawed its way up my throat. The answer was already written in every cruel word I had read. I saved every page of the PDF, every screenshot, every word, then backed it all up in case they tried to erase it. When it was done, I blocked Vanessa and deleted her number, but I knew Jonathan was already on his way. His hoarse voice came through the phone. "I'll be home in 10 minutes, Madison." He paused, then added, "Another call is coming in. I'll ring you back." The sound of police sirens wailed outside. Flashing blue lights bouncing off the windows. In that moment, I understood Jonathan Hughes would not be coming back. The officers explained that the mover who taunted me had been drinking on duty. His colleagues admitted they knew his mouth ran wild when he was drunk, though he meant no real harm. But my reaction had panicked them all, leaving them shaken. The man bowed low, apologizing over and over, but my body still recoiled instinctively, trembling, as if every nerve were exposed. Only after the police scolded them firmly and spoke to me gently did I begin to breathe again. When I finally stepped out of the station, dawn had already broken. The sunlight felt cruel pressing down on me until I thought I would shatter. The rope I had clung to for years had finally snapped. Jonathan called while I leaned against the car, crying silently. His voice was tired, almost casual. Vanessa had an emergency last night. I stayed with her. That's why I couldn't come. I couldn't speak, my throat too raw, and he chuckled softly. Do you really have to cry like this? The wedding is only 2 months away. We just missed one night. You can't be apart from me for a few hours. I steadied myself, drew in a long breath, and cut him off coldly. Jonathan, we are not getting married. Before he could respond, Vanessa's voice floated into the call, sweet and taunting. Oh, Jonathan, go back to your fiancé if you must. Don't blame me, Madison. I never tried to keep him. Last night I was in pain. I couldn't help it. If you break off the wedding over something so small, then I guess I'll be remembered as the wicked woman who ruined everything. Her laugh was coy, dripping with poison. Jonathan's voice came back softer now, coaxing. Do you really have to make such a scene? The wedding is almost here. I'm coming home soon. Just stop crying, stop overreacting. But the images from the PDF still burned in my mind. Every filthy word they had written about me. Every betrayal etched into my skin. He was rotten from the inside out, and I refused to waste another breath on him. I hung up without hesitation. Then I gathered every recording, every screenshot, and dropped them into the family chat created to plan the wedding. Both sides of the family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them were there. The moment the files landed, chaos erupted. So this is what you've been hiding. Our Madison isn't ending the engagement without reason. That man humiliated her in ways unforgivable. How could we ever trust him with our daughter? I can't believe it. Jonathan Hughes always looked so polished, so respectful. Yet behind closed doors, he spewed filth about his own fiancée. If he didn't love her, why chase her all these years? Our Madison is a decent, upright woman. To slander her like that is unforgivable. Canceling the wedding isn't enough. He must apologize to her face. Message after message piled in until finally, Robert and Margaret Hughes had no choice but to silence their son in the chat. Their reply came stiff and formal. Tomorrow we will visit in person to apologize. This was rash behavior, not a matter of character. Please, Madison, give Jonathan another chance. But I had already spoken with my company, confirmed the 3-year assignment, and booked a flight for the following week. My escape was set. Then Jonathan messaged me privately. Are you really blowing this out of proportion just because of Vanessa? I don't understand how you've become like this. Acting this way will only push me further from you. I could picture his face even through the screen, twisted with anger at losing control, furious that I had slipped beyond his grasp. The thought made me laugh sharp and bitter as the last of my tears dried. Jonathan still believed I had used my family to drive him away from Vanessa, as if everything had been some scheme of mine. I did not reply. I simply blocked his number, cutting off the last thread between us, though the fury still burned hot in my chest. When I first returned to St. Louis after our breakup years ago, I hadn't sought him out. It was he who chased me again harder than before, standing in the rain outside my apartment on my birthday, until even my father felt pity and urged me to let him in. At the time, I believed that a reunion after heartbreak must be twice as precious, that people who had lost each other once would treasure one another more. Now I knew better. When love is rotten, it cannot be revived. As I worried about how to face his family, my mother quietly told me that the Hughes had agreed to cancel the engagement. Not long after, Margaret Hughes called herself, her tone calm, almost detached. Madison, you are an educated, thoughtful girl. Jonathan truly loves you, and I have supported this marriage with all my heart. But you have embarrassed our family by letting the entire clan know of this trivial matter. Vanessa is nothing more than a companion, a friend to keep him from feeling lonely. These days, people have friends for dinner, friends to shop, friends to travel. What is wrong with a friend for a breakup? Before she could finish, Jonathan snatched the phone. His voice was sharp. Madison, I know you never liked Vanessa, but I told you clearly after the bachelor party, I was ready to be serious with you. It's you who dragged things this far. What's done is done. Why make it worse? If you keep being stubborn, don't blame me for walking away. And if you want to reconcile, you'll have to apologize to Vanessa. She suffered insults because of you. I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. I had been far too kind to him already. My father, usually gentle, yanked the phone from my hand. His voice thundered fierce and unrestrained. You ungrateful brat, look in a mirror if you want to see filth. Your whole family spews poison the moment you open your mouths. Don't you dare speak to us again. Jonathan went silent, and his mother could only sputter incoherently, so angry she shook. At last she shrieked rude, unbearably rude, before I cut the line, adding my own cold insult for good measure. I thought that was the end, that from here the mountains and seas would stretch wide, and nothing would bind us again. Before my departure, I was invited to speak at my old university's anniversary celebration. I dressed in formal wear and stepped out of the dressing room only to find Jonathan and Vanessa waiting in the hallway. Her eyes flashed with challenge before she slipped on her mask of sweetness. Well, if it isn't my dear sister-in-law all dressed up. Look at your hands red from the effort. Beauty requires sacrifice, doesn't it? Then she pretended to gasp, covering her mouth with feigned embarrassment. Oh, I forgot, you two broke up. She edged closer, trying to cling to Jonathan's arm like a declaration of victory. But he sidestepped her smoothly. His eyes locked on me instead, lingering on the gown that shimmered under the lights. He smiled faintly. You've lasted longer than I expected, Madison. I thought you'd have come running back by now. His gaze traveled over me, and in his eyes I saw open wonder. You look beautiful tonight. The sound of his admiration made me sick. I stepped back and gave him nothing more than a flat, cold thanks before turning away. At that moment, a voice called my name. An old classmate hurried toward me, his face lit with joy. Madison, it's been so long. I heard you were assigned overseas. I was afraid you wouldn't make it today. Others gathered, two familiar faces from years past, their warmth wrapping around me. Jonathan's friends clapped him on the shoulders, teasing as if nothing had changed. Where Madison goes, Jonathan always follows. Don't forget to invite us to the wedding, just not during finals like the engagement party. Their laughter filled the air genuine bright. The room warmed with nostalgia, and for a brief moment I remembered what it felt like to belong somewhere safe. Vanessa hovered at the edge, her smile brittle, unable to wedge herself into the circle. Jonathan forced a laugh, but the sound cracked, and when he edged closer to me, his voice faltered, struggling to find its old strength. Madison. We spoke in unison, and the atmosphere froze. Jonathan bent close, whispering against my ear, his tone almost pleading. Enough, Madison. How long are you going to make a scene? Give us both a way out. Don't take it this far. How much longer do you plan to punish me? I pushed him back with a calm face and lifted my hand toward Vanessa, who was shaking with fury. There, your new girlfriend. Silence fell again, thick as smoke. Vanessa was the first to recover her smile. Strained but polite. Hello, everyone. I'm Vanessa Collins, Jonathan's friend. No, Jonathan snapped, his voice dropping low. She's just a colleague. In that moment, he seemed to realize that I was no longer sulking, no longer playing the part of the jealous fiancé. I truly no longer needed him. His breath hitched as he tried to sound casual. Back when Madison and I broke up, Vanessa was just a breakup buddy, more like a comrade than anything real. But his trembling voice betrayed him. We had studied together for 4 years. These friends knew him as well as I did. Everyone could see how nervous he was. One of the men laughed aloud. Who brings a breakup buddy to a school reunion? Jonathan's eyes darted away. He muttered, She said she didn't know anyone here, begged me to bring her along. Then in a feeble attempt to distance himself, he added, Vanessa, go mingle on your own. Didn't you once say the best way to forget an ex is to start with someone new? See if you can find someone else to amuse you. Faces turned toward her and her cheeks flushed dark red. All at once, the eyes of the group returned to me. I stood steady, composed, and their smiles carried a quiet understanding. We walked together toward the main hall, leaving Jonathan and Vanessa behind. But from behind us, Vanessa's voice rang out sharp and venomous. "You all don't know the truth. Madison looks gentle and innocent on the surface, but she's nothing more than a calculating little tramp. She fooled you all." The words landed like a bomb. Everyone stopped and turned. Vanessa crossed her arms triumphant. She wasn't some saint. She slept with Jonathan after only a short time. And she even paid for the hotel herself. Murmurs spread, curious eyes flicking toward me. My steps halted, my expression hardening. Because the worst part was that her words were true. She took my silence for weakness and pressed on, gloating. "And she's quite talented in bed too, aren't you, Madison?" The crack of my hand across Jonathan's face echoed down the hall. My whole body shook with rage. He had taken the most intimate parts of our relationship, whispered them to another woman, and let her use them to humiliate me in public. Not once, but over and over again. "Madison, wait," he stammered, clutching his cheek, eyes wide with panic. "Let me explain," but I stared straight into his face and saw him clearly for the first time. If you want to judge a man's character, look at him at his lowest. And Jonathan Hughes at his lowest was vile beyond imagination. The laughter that once followed him had curdled into disgust. His old classmates looked at him as though he were diseased, dragging me quickly away so as not to be stained by his shame. Madison Jonathan called desperately as I walked on. "You dressed up like this for me, didn't you? We got back together once before, we can do it again." His voice cracked a last pitiful hope. But the moment the MC called my name and the spotlight shifted to me, he realized the truth. I was not there for him. I never would be again. The loathing inside me had never been a trick to win him back. It was freedom pure and final. That evening during the reunion, Jonathan still tried to angle for a seat near me, lowering his head, softening his voice, searching for a shred of sympathy. But his words dissolved into the air, meaningless, because my heart was already elsewhere beyond his reach, forever. Jonathan's excuses spilled out desperate and weak. "When we broke up, I couldn't forget you, Madison, so I said reckless things. I'm sorry." But between me and Vanessa, nothing ever crossed the line. She was just someone I pitied, someone broken like me. His eyes softened, the same pleading look he had once used to win me over when I was 18. Back then it had made me blush, unable to meet his gaze. Now I stared back cold and unmoved. "Jonathan, you look like a dog begging with its tail tucked. I gave you chances, but if you want forgiveness, go beg the woman who once loved you with everything she had." Relief spread through my friends' faces. They had already seen the PDF, the evidence of his betrayal. Their laughter came easy now, sharp and merciless. "Who brings funeral flowers to an engagement one mocked?" Another added, "Next time, Jonathan, tell us early. We'll cover the whole aisle in yellow chrysanthemums just for you." His face strained of color. My friends closed ranks around me, pushing him to the edge. One of them nudged me playfully. "Madison, what happened that night you moved out? You didn't call Jonathan. The guy's been lifting weights for years. Beating up a drunk would have been nothing for him. Remember when he fought 3 guys in an alley just to protect you?" Their winks and chuckles made me laugh in spite of myself. He was too busy pulling an all-nighter with his breakup buddy. I said, my voice laced with venom. In the end, I had to rely on the police. The table erupted again, and Jonathan sat pale as a ghost, silenced by his own disgrace. Near the end of the night, his voice finally cracked through the noise. "I heard you're going abroad, Madison. Where are you going?" But his question fell flat. When the day came, I sat at the airport with my parents, lighthearted for the first time in years. We had taken photos together, ready to step into a new life. Then I heard it, the familiar voices of the Hughes family. They approached Jonathan, tense and pale, his parents pretending as though nothing had happened. Margaret Hughes clasped my mother's hand sweetly. "The move will be hard, let Jonathan help. Madison is delicate, she might fall ill without him." Jonathan nodded, his voice firm as if bracing himself. Yes, I'll go. Don't I cut him off coldly. We're finished. Show some dignity. Even seeing you once more feels filthy. The words hit him like a blow, and he swayed, almost collapsing. Still he forced himself upright, clinging to a shred of pride. I turned away, linking arms with my parents. I thought that would end it. But in the middle of the crowded terminal, Jonathan dropped to his knees. His voice shook loud enough for everyone to hear. Madison, I can't live without you. I lost you once, I can't lose you again. We were each other's first love, we were supposed to marry. You're only gone for 3 years. I'll wait. I'll visit every weekend. No, I'll quit my job and move to be with you. Just don't leave me. I recoiled, stepping back as if his touch would burn me. You disgust me. Stop humiliating yourself. This time I'm giving everything I have. If I'm good enough, I'll stay there forever. In other words, Jonathan, I'm never coming back. His face twisted with panic, rage, disbelief. He pulled out his phone, shouting into it, calling Vanessa's name, spewing filth at the woman he had once chosen over me. His voice echoed through the terminal, pathetic and cruel, but I no longer listened. I was already walking toward my gate, each step, lighter, freer, certain that I would never look back. The sky that day was impossibly blue clouds, drifting like giant tufts of cotton candy. Madison walked away with her head high, and I finally understood her greatest love was herself. She no longer needed me. For me, that moment was the beginning of the end. When she calmly told me she was leaving, my world collapsed. I could not accept a future that no longer had my name in it. She tried to soothe me, saying it was only a year abroad, but a year is long enough to change everything. She was brilliant, radiant, impossible to ignore. I had once beaten out countless men to win her heart. I believed that my devotion, my fierce and open love, had secured her forever. But when she whispered goodbye late one night, her voice weary, I was left with nothing but pride and pain. I met Vanessa during that emptiness. She was ordinary, maybe even forgettable, but she was kind. She became my so-called breakup buddy, someone who understood loneliness the way I did. When she mocked Madison in front of me, I should have silenced her, but instead, something twisted in me took pleasure in hearing Madison brought down from the pedestal I had built for her. It felt like proof that she wasn't untouchable, that she wasn't perfect. Yet when I saw Madison again sitting in a cafe with a plain white t-shirt and jeans, reading quietly beneath the afternoon light, my heart thundered in my chest, as if it had never been broken. It was love at first sight all over again. I chased her once more, begged her forgiveness, promised her everything. When she gave me another chance, I drowned in the happiness of being chosen again. But the war between Madison and Vanessa erupted suddenly, tearing everything apart. On one side was Vanessa, the woman who had pulled me out of my darkest nights. On the other was Madison, the woman I had sworn never to lose again. Instead of choosing with conviction, I wavered. Again and again, I allowed myself to indulge in the thrill of two women fighting over me, intoxicated by the illusion of being desired. So when Madison finally ended it for real this time, I shattered. I could not believe the woman who had once loved me so fiercely could leave me with such calm resolve. Her face at the airport haunted me, proud, beautiful, untouchable. I thought of her constantly restless, sleepless, imagining her surrounded by admirers, while I withered in mediocrity. I drifted after college, landing in a job handed to me by my parents' connections, half living, half failing. My friends dragged me out drinking night after night until alcohol became my second skin. One night, drowning in liquor, I called Vanessa. She came dressed to tempt me seductive under the red glow of the bar lights. Even her plain face seemed alluring in that haze. What happened next destroyed me. In a blur of broken clothes, mocking laughter, and drunken recklessness, the night spiraled out of control. Vanessa accused me of crossing a line I never meant to cross. The trial was swift and merciless. She sat thin and trembling in court, muttering incoherently while I stood condemned. I hated her. I hated myself more. Behind prison bars, regret is the only companion. Every night I replayed the choices that brought me there. I should have stood by Madison, should have fought for her, should have been unwavering. If I had been the man she deserved, none of this would have happened. But wishes do not rewrite the past. Love once squandered does not ignite twice. I told myself I would love Madison with an unshakable devotion if I ever had another chance, but there would be no other chance. The fire had burned out, and all that remained of Jonathan Hughes was ashes. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.